Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Galen Data Medical Device Innovation Webinar Series. My name is Abbas Talawala. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Galen Data, and I'll be your host today. Today, we'll be hearing from Tyler Dean, VP of Medical at B-Secur, for a conversation on partnership between Galen Data and B-Secur for accelerating path for cardiac cloud monitoring. We'll talk about leveraging B-Secur's advanced clinical-grade cardiac algorithms through the Galen Data's platform and see how that can accelerate product development and time to market. We'll also discuss different kinds of algorithms that are currently available and some roadmap on what the availability will look like. But first, few housekeeping items and a little information on Galen Data. So Galen Data provides an FDA-compliant cloud for medical device manufacturers. The Galen Cloud provides a configurable platform for device-to-cloud connectivity that is compliant to FDA, HIPAA, and CE mark standards. We are ISO 13485 certified, and the product on AWS is high-trust certified as well. We are GDPR compliant and have facilities right now in Europe and US. Founded by seasoned medical device professionals, our goal is to make medical device connectivity available to all at a fraction of cost while shaving months of development timeline. Galen Data allows medical device companies to stay medical device companies and not become IT companies. Finally, some quick logistics for this webinar. As we are going through this, if you have any questions, you can type those in the Q&A section available through the sidebar. You'll see either on your left or right hand side, depending on your client. We'll either ask those questions to Tyler at the end, or if appropriate, I'll bring up those during our conversation. There's also some handouts on that control panel with some information about Galen Data and a white paper on Galen on the cloud connectivity. Also a reminder that a copy of this webinar will be sent to you via email. That being said, let me introduce our guest, Tyler Dean. Welcome, Tyler. Let's start with a brief introduction on yourself. Tell us more about yourself and how did you end up at B-Secur?
Yeah, I'm happy to, and thank you, Abbas, and thanks for having me today on y'all's webinar. So thrilled to be here with you, thrilled to be here with Galen, and some of the things, at least in my mind, that kind of make this a 1 + 1 + 3. But I guess a brief background on myself. So spent the last, give or take, 20 years in the cardiac space predominantly, from Philips, Biotel, AliveCore, some life sciences space, actually, as well as the nonprofit sector. But spent a fair amount of time in a myriad of different roles and responsibilities over the last couple of decades, but thrilled to be with B-Secur now and heading up their medical division. And I actually have some exciting news from B-Secur coming out next week. So I think the timing is actually quite appropriate from a selfish interest on one hand, but also kind of highlighting the partnership of what we're doing.
Awesome. Let's start with maybe give us the audience a bit of history about B-Secur. I know it's an interesting path. Company started and where it is today. Maybe just give us that idea and kind of what you do at the end of the day. And if you need me to bring up the slides you send me, let me know and I'll bring those up.
No, it's fine. Yeah, so B-Secur. So interestingly enough, B-Secur was founded about almost a decade ago by a gentleman by the name of Alan Foreman. So Accenture, and then spun out of actually some of the universities out of the UK. So B-Secur actually is a UK entity for the most part, but also a US organization. It was founded and has pivoted a little bit since the founding of it, but we have legacy business as it relates to actually using the ECG as a personal identifier, very similar to like a fingerprint or even facial recognition, predominantly focused in prison facilities as well as actually the financial tech space. So it started out from that aspect and actually being able to identify an individual by their ECG and proving that out. And that is a fair amount of our legacy business that's done on chip and some on cloud deployment as well. And then since then, we've actually grown into and have strategic partnerships with Orlando Health, which is a big health system in the state of Florida, and has pivoted us now to soon to be our second FDA approval and kind of migrating or broadening the scope of what the signal processing engine from B-Secur can do. Not only ECG, but the signal clarity, signal conditioning, as well as some rhythm recognition. But I'd say that we're definitely grounded kind of in a principles first aspect from not only electrode characterization across everything from arm sleeves and anklets to underwear to dry and wet electrodes.
Cool. So what do you see? I mean, obviously, there's a lot of innovation that has happened since the founding of B-Secur. So what do you see as a drive towards the kind of the medical use cases, both as a general wellness, but also very specific, kind of regulated space?
Well, and that's where I think I guess where our kind of lens is on it is one as an enabler to cardiac device companies or organizations looking to go down the route of FDA approval and giving them a kind of a turnkey solution. And that's one of the things I guess that became very attractive in my mind of even Galen Data, of being able to, I think it's a 1 + 1 = 3. So being able to accelerate not only the development aspect, but the integration, getting down to the provider or the institutional level from a medical device or a wearable organization. So I think that we've seen a lot of traction and a lot of interest from that, specifically around the diagnostic aspects of it, predominantly in the wearable space and some in the implantable space, of trying to say, all right, can we do this? Can we actually prove it? Can we improve diagnostic yield? And can we improve that outcome and accelerate the time to diagnosis, which becomes quite important. And then if we take it even a step further, I guess, to the downstream aspect, even with certified cardiac technicians or CRATs and even the provider level, of having trusted data that's coming off of it, regardless of the device type. So we remain agnostic across the cardiac devices, as long as it's lead 1, lead 2, lead 3, or modified lead 2, or even a cardiothoracic. So a couple different ways, I guess, that we're approaching it to look at it as kind of the, I guess, in our lens, the subject matter experts around signal clarity of ECG and what can we actually derive from that to empower better decisions making in quicker time.
Okay. So let's talk about the actual product, the HeartKey kind of suite, right? Of things you have. So just maybe you have different kind of products that target different things. Maybe talk a little bit about the product suite.
Yeah, so B-Secur is actually set up as an organization with 4 verticals. So we've got medical, obviously, is kind of where I kind of stay focused, or that's kind of the lane I guess I'm in as it relates to Holter monitors, patches, MCT devices, plannable loop recorders, pacers, defibrillators, that side of the house. And then from a consumer standpoint, that's actually where it was pre our first FDA approval, and that's where we kind of not pivoted, but kind of been pushed into the more medical side. But everything then from wrist wearables, even looking at bioimpedance, stress levels, and energy expenditure, all derived from an ECG, which becomes quite interesting. And then work with a handful of the wellness, sports performance folks, um, and well, even rest and recovery as it relates to actually tracking it, monitoring it, and then how do you improve either the performance of the athlete, the general population as a whole, or even the quote unquote from a healthcare standpoint, somewhat the worried well with consumer devices that could have medical grade accuracy.
And then something about signal processing. That is the core of your offering right now.
It is. So the signal conditioning, and if you'll just advance it again, I didn't realize this one actually had the graphics in it.
Ah,
And looking at it from the signal conditioning piece of it, a lot of times off any type of ECG signal, you're obviously going to have baseline wonder. You're going to have different ohms. You're going to have different spikes that's created by motion, noise, artifact, muscle, a lot of different things. So we're helping that not only from a low and high pass band filtering, which is relatively common of anybody doing ECG, but we're doing it from a digital signal processing aspect to further enhance that. So even if I look at, I'll use patches or MCT devices today, the diagnostic yield typically on about a 21, or the readability of the data typically on about a 21-day study is around anywhere between 80 and 85%. And what we've seen so far out of that is that we're seeing that improve now north of the 90-95% range, which becomes quite valuable of that 10% delta, especially from a scalability standpoint. That kind of dovetails into another piece of the library of how it's architected into signal quality. So now this is actually coming in from the raw data, going back to a certified cardiac technician to improve their efficiency and the outcome and the output of them building their reports to actually provide to a provider. The beat detection aspect of it is the kind of third piece, or the third piece of basically a library of 4. And this is what's helping clean that signal as it relates to going into rhythm recognition software, whether that's AI downstream that may be proprietary to another company, that we're empowering that and seeing better outcomes from not only a machine learning standpoint, but an AI standpoint. Because I think most people would tend to lean into thinking that kind of from an AI standpoint is junk in, junk out. So if you have it better coming off or better even processed through the cloud from a digital signal processing aspect, you're going to improve the output of what the functionality or the form factor of the device is.
cool. So let's talk a little bit about. Well, I don't know if you have anything on the slide.
Yeah, a couple things here. So, I mean, this is actually was presented at HRX last year and HRS actually last year as well. And then we've got actually quite a few announcements coming out next week at HRX. But this was what it looked like of using actually a standard of care device that is a market leader in the space of from looking at it from what was the feedback from providers that was run across multiple health systems. So is it easier to read? What's the accuracy in the broad use applications from an inpatient and an outpatient setting? What was the time to diagnosis? Were they in agreement that they could actually provide a faster diagnosis with implementing a software solution to existing hardware? And then did it actually outperform the industry standard? So we're seeing pretty much across most of the facets that we're looking at from a statistical standpoint or even from a study standpoint that yes, there's a tremendous amount of value in this. And I think that's what continues to kind of propel our business as we're looking at it from, an agnostic partner across multiple companies or multiple organizations and industries.
And just to reiterate, you are device agnostic, right? As long as the ECG has the right, you have meta information about that, it doesn't really matter what kind of device somebody is building out. You're really just looking at a signal by itself and then the metadata that comes with it.
Correct. And I guess kind of where we actually started was actually around that, I guess, kind of talking about it from the individual identification aspect and solving for that as it related to electrode characterization work. So it was an R&D shop for quite a while of trying to solve from a principles first aspect engineering wise. That another vertical of our business is actually our ABLE Labs, Advanced Biosensing Engineering Lab, to where we do the electrode characterization work for a lot of different organizations to help their speed to development and work alongside them or as well as with their OEMs, ODMs to help them not only a schematic design aspect, but how can you optimize the signal coming off to improve the quality of the ECG coming in to make an informed decision. And whether that's an informed decision to a consumer or a healthcare provider or a service provider in the healthcare space.
Cool. All right, so let's talk a little bit on kind of the partnership aspect of this. So maybe give your perspective why you decided to partner with Galen, and then I'll give my perspective and some story on how we actually even found you. Through it's a funny story, but I'll do that second. So why us? Like why did you pick Galen Cloud, or what about us actually made you think about hey, we need a partnership here?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I think it aligns well, at least from one of the perspectives of one to many, and you guys can become an enabler of a lot of our partners as well. So I think it becomes quite synergistic from that aspect of we're not necessarily going to be going directly into a health system per se. We still need a vehicle to get there, being that we're a software entity. And then having a partner like Galen that is basically doing everything in the cloud, if we have that pre-processing aspect and the benefits of being high trust, I think that builds credibility across both parties and ultimately to potentially our end clients to help accelerate them get to market or provide better patient care from my lens. Which, if that's the case, then getting a lot of those, I guess, hurdles out of the way is probably one of the biggest pieces of it because it's solving for a much bigger problem that's very complex, which I'm sure you guys are well aware of. I mean, high trust is not easy to get. ISO is not easy to get. FDA is not easy to get. So there's a lot of pieces that have to come together to where it becomes one to many, I guess, is ultimately kind of where I land with it.
Cool. Something very similar on our end. So just a quick history on how we even found B-Secur. So one of our co-founders, Alex Condon, I think he was I forget which uh, event, but it was an event, and he saw the attendee, and one of the attendee was Adrian Condon, one of the co-founders of B-Secure, and it was just a Condon name, and it's like, huh, I should go meet him. So they stuck a, he went and they started talking, and it turned out, they're both very similar space, healthcare, medical devices. And then we started learning more about B-Secure, and we were really intrigued. At one point, we were trying to think, how can we get these algorithms into the cloud? And then we had customers, our customers kind of ask us the same question. Hey, you have this platform, but do you also have some out-of-the-box algorithms we could use? And there's a lot of them were EKG, ECG kind of customers. And we said, no, we don't, because we're not experts in algorithms. We do the cloud, and that's what we do. But that started us thinking, hey, we should go and look for companies that have these kind of algorithms and see if this offering makes sense. This combined offering of our platform that does data management, does security, privacy, does visualization, and it already allows from an architecture perspective to run your algorithms. Can we also get third parties to run the algorithms? And then we and Alex kind of remember, hey, what about B-Secur? That company does this similar thing as they provide these algorithms, and that's where we reach out back to B-Secur. And I think so far the journey has been great. Um, and we're trying to integrate everything at this point so that the basic algorithms will be available once they are approved and released into the Galen ecosystem, and hopefully our clients benefit from that. And then we see the same thing. Our goal has always been to accelerate medical device development, the digital aspect of it specifically, both from a time perspective, but also from a regulatory perspective. And that's why we are ISO certified. That's why we are high trust certified, is to again reduce that burden on our customer, because let them focus on what they do best. And this is just another step into that direction. Is we're going to try to offer more tools to further accelerate that process, and then having you guys specifically with FDA clearance of your own on these algorithms just makes so much sense. And that's kind of how we see the partnership. As again, I agree with you. 1+1 is 3 at this point because we offer so much value. High level, I want to kind of explain. This looks horrible. Sorry about that. When I made this, it looked better. But the idea here is that the hardkey suite of algorithms will be available within the Galen Cloud infrastructure. Nothing really changes in the way the Galen Cloud is being used today in terms of the device interaction. So devices, specific devices that produce EKG in this case, EKG, ECG signals, still upload that signals to the Galen Cloud. What will change, and I'll give a quick demo on kind of what we will see eventually available to customers, is the ability to route that signal to the hardkey suite of algorithms, and you pick the algorithms that will be available to do what. It could be multiple. It could be a chain of algorithms. So you can do signal processing, for example, and then take that cleaner signal into some other the rhythm detection and stuff like that. So you can chain out. The idea is that you build your offering with these pieces or these tools that are being offered both by Galen and Hardkey and by B-Secur. But essentially that'll be available, and then that signal can be recorded back or saved back into the Galen cloud, at which point the clinicians or patients or whoever needs to see it can use either the Galen web portal or something else if you have your own front end to be able to then interact with that signal and the quality of stuff. I have an example here or a quick demo of how this looks. And the only example I have is around arrhythmia detection, but I'll show that. Let me switch to
Well, I think it's
different.
one of the things that I was quite impressed by of how quickly you guys were actually able to integrate this and even get it into a demo environment. And I think it speaks
Yeah,
to the level of expertise of you guys, and I think hopefully as well as how HeartKey was actually architected. What's
yeah,
that
no,
thought?
the architecture was very, very helpful for us to plug and play into it. We work with your team, our team work with your team, and there was a pleasant experience in that. But essentially, what I have here is this is for those who haven't seen the Galen Cloud. This is the Galen Cloud front end. This is what's offered out of the box. One of the dashboards I have here is an EKG dashboard. So I have an example here already, and I'm going to put a new example live. Hopefully, stuff works live, but we'll try it. But I have an example here where a signal was uploaded from a dummy device that we have here. And then it was routed to the B-Secur's rhythm detection engine in this case. And what they did is essentially detected arrhythmia, specifically bradycardia rhythm here. So you can kind of see the raw signal if I take away the markers. So there's a raw signal here. This was a couple of minutes long signal, and it kind of just standard EKG signals. And then what the B-Secure algorithms did is essentially went through the signal and identified a potential bradycardia event. right? So that's kind of what the algorithms can do. It's very straightforward. What the availability is, we have this event engine that allows us to capture events and then route the data that's being captured to certain things. And it could be simple things like emails. You can send an email notification, but one of the things you can do is process the signal. And traditionally, you create an event and you pick, my data is available here. And when my data comes, I can do certain things, right? So I mentioned email notification, but you can do other things. One of the things that's going to be available once we have this approved is the B-Secur hard key algorithms. And you configure that algorithm to different things. You have to specify what the signal looks like, some metadata about signal, and then most important, you select which kind of algorithm you want to do. And I have an example here already pre configured, which is around arrhythmia check, and that's the algorithm that allowed that signal to go. So what I'm going to do, as I said, live. So we'll see if this works. I'm going to push one more of this. Signal into the Galen cloud. And this is going to be around, this is a signal that I know already has an atrial fibrillation in it. So it should detect AFib. So let's see, I'm going to hit a button here. This is my dummy device that sends data. So let's go look, see if the data showed up. So I'm going to go back to the EKG dashboard. And Where's my, okay, sorry, looking for my mouse. And you see now that I have the second signal that showed up here. And I'm going to look at the chart. And then here is the signal. Again, I'm going to take the arrhythmia check out. And you see the signal. And this is the raw signal. So if we didn't have the B-Secure algorithm, this is all you're going to see is the raw signal because that's what we done. But because of the B-Secure algorithms, it essentially gave you additional information now. In this case, the arrhythmia detection, AFib detected on that particular section of that signal. So essentially, you can see that with just some configuration, now we have a use case of the arrhythmia detection into the system. Now you can do further things. You can say anytime this detection happened, you can add additional events and say, hey, I need to notify the patient, I need to notify maybe the clinician or whatever that happens. But this essentially allows it. What I am not able to show right now, but things that you can do further is signal processing, as Tyler mentioned, cleaning up the signal. If you have very noisy signal, you can clean up, and we can save both the noisy signal and the clean signal into the system. Again, all just based on configuration. You don't have to write code to do any other stuff. And then things that may be of interest, stress detection and energy expenditure that may be of interest. So there's different algorithms. Some of these are available through B-Secure. Some of them are in the pipeline, will be available in sometime in the future. But that's where we are into how the integration sort of works. Any thoughts, Tyler?
Actually, I'm impressed seeing it in real time, to be honest with you. That's not an easy thing to do from a software
No,
standpoint.
yeah, this sometimes stuff don't work. So
Well,
I'm actually impressed at work.
there's really no latency with it, which I think is great, and how we've architected a soon to be launched product, I guess, is what I can leave it at today.
Yeah,
But that's what the goal was of our second FDA approval, was to operate in quote unquote near real time. And there's always going to be some level of latency, but when you've got it down to near real time, that now has a much broader use case, I think, for, well, just general population in healthcare.
yeah, yeah. The speed, we were amazed at the speed, and we ran through larger signals through this, and it's pretty responsive. And that's kind of just as I go back to the slides here, just to kind of clarify that the hard key algorithms run within the Gale infrastructure. So the security and privacy of data is still managed by Galen Data. So that's our certification around high trust and ISO and other things still apply for running that data. No data is actually sent to be secure. No no actual signals are sent to B-Secur. We will share like usage information and how many times the hard key algorithm was used, mostly because that's how the pricing is going to work around. But in general, it's still, just to clarify, it's everything runs locally within the Galen cloud infrastructure. And if you choose to leverage this integration in the future, your data is still kept within the silo you have within the Galen cloud. So there's no real sharing of information here. We make privacy of data very important, very, very, we make that an important thing to protect.
It's a huge value proposition for any health system that I'm aware of. So
Yes.
having it work and live within the cloud, there's no data that has to come out of it. So from a HIPAA standpoint, from a PHI standpoint, from pretty much all the things that are stumbling blocks for a lot of different organizations, especially as rapid as things are changing, that becomes a very difficult turnkey approach to kind of partner with.
Yeah. All right. So to kind of, I think that's all we had in terms of discussion points today. Let me get back to the screen. There you go. Um, there is questions. If so, before we go into, if there's questions the audience has, please do type in the Q&A box on your client. You should see one that's labeled as a question mark. Those are the questions. And I already see some questions coming in, so we'll start. But as you have these questions, please do type it in, and we'll try our best to answer answer the question. So the first question that came in is, you mentioned FDA clearance. Is these algorithms available outside of the US, or what other regions are in your roadmap?
So the short answer is yes, depending on a regulatory pathway. But yes, we work predominantly right now, actually, in a lot of some developing countries, a little bit in the EU. Obviously, the US has been our primary focus with the FDA approval pathways of it. And then we've partnered with a handful of other organizations, kind of down the CE pathways, as well as within India and Australia.
Awesome. And we are globally available as a platform. Right now, we have customers in 6 of the 7 continents selling devices. So pretty much everywhere, and then we can go anywhere essentially. Well, not anywhere, but most places. There's some restrictions on some regions, but we can generally go most places in the world. Um, do you have any publication on the effectiveness of these algorithms?
So the short answer is yes. What I can share publicly today is from a sensitivity specificity standpoint, we're operating just north on the low end at 97%, depending on the rhythm, and then closer to 99.8% on a handful of other rhythms. There will be a lot of additional information that's being released next week. But even if I think about it from what is currently FDA approved, that's about where our threshold is about 97% from a sensitivity specificity standpoint around your 6 core rhythms. So think of it from your AF, your Brady, your tachy, um, normal sinus rhythm and conclusive. So your kind of standard ones there. And then it's obviously broadening from there from a beat detection aspect to your quadrimenes and a lot of your ventricular rhythms as well.
Okay. Another question that came up: does B-Secure sell hardware as well, or is it just software company?
We do not. We enable hardware and we partner with folks through our advanced biosensing engineering lab to help that from a developmental standpoint or to even troubleshoot. So we've worked across the gamut from consumer to medical device, across all of it from early stage companies to tier one organizations.
Now, you have a professional services division, so you can do POC work, though, right?
Correct.
Right. Cool. Um, what does it mean that your ECG algorithms are cleared? Do they mean that the FDA approves for a specific indication of use? Can you explain what your FDA clearance scope is, I guess?
Yes. So yeah, how I guess I'm interpreting the question. So our FDA clearance is software as a medical device. So someone can take this if they're looking to have their hardware cleared and they're looking to have ECG within it, then this becomes basically the software that is the predicate as well as approved. So it shortens that regulatory pathway for a new organization, or maybe if they're going to a Gen 2 device. And we can do everything from the electrocharacterization work from materials management to what does that look like even with the AFEs and the Semico organizations. because a handful of our partnerships are actually semico companies. So we're doing a lot of testing for them as well to not only reduce power consumption, but how do we improve the longevity of the devices, whether that's from a battery life standpoint or a myriad of different opportunities, I guess, from my lens. Um, so is that answering the question?
I think so. I mean, I can't talk with but I think so. I think they're trying to understand the scope, like what exactly comes with these algorithms, like what FDA predicate, I guess, or what is available today, and kind of what claims they can make
So it is
with
the entire
these
library:
algorithms.
so conditioning, signal quality, signal processing, and rhythm recognition. So it basically is a turnkey approach for FDA approval of software as a medical device. So we actually, at least to my knowledge, we're the first agnostic software as a medical device that's actually available for ECG across multiple form factors and multiple leads.
Cool. Next question is, are these algorithms available to run on device, or are they only available in the cloud?
Great question. So HeartKey Core, which was our first FDA approval, can be on cloud or device. HeartKey Rhythm is, I guess, a lot of where we've talked about today, and HeartKey Core can be deployed on device or in cloud. And then HeartKey Rhythm today is FDA approved, will be available in the cloud.
All right. Um,
Good question.
yeah. So I think there's a follow-up. It's a different person, but something very similar. So what are the hardware requirements to run these algorithm on the device? Do you need can it run on a microcontroller, on a single-threaded device, or do you need an OS?
Microcontroller, so we do work even from a signal processing engine, and the core components of it can actually all be deployed on a microcontroller. So,
Cool.
but happy to have a deeper dive on those aspects of it without understanding kind of where it may be sitting. Because if you're looking at it from a user identification standpoint, that can also run actually on an AFE. But I guess yeah, I mean, I'm happy, but that would be a much deeper discussion, I think.
Right. Is B-Secur ISO 1345 certified? Is Galen ISO 1345 certified?
We both are.
Yes, we both are. Yes. Uh, and so, just to
Which
like
became very
expand.
attractive in my mind
Yeah.
because
No,
that's
no,
also a big hurdle as well.
yeah, absolutely. So for us, that basically means that we provide a full DHF. So if you are using the Galen Cloud and you need to you need to make the Galen Cloud part of your medical device submission, we provide essentially whatever you need to go into your submission from our DHF, and obviously open to audits and stuff like that.
Yep.
What's the monthly fee? Is it a monthly subscription, and what's the monthly fee to use the B-Secure algorithms? That's a good question.
That
We
is
don't know the answer yet.
uh, so where we've kind of backed into it as it relates to a new product launch. It's I guess where we've landed with a lot of organizations that we've been doing some validation work with is more so around on almost on a per study basis if it's in a fee for service world or reimbursed world. And then it could be, if it's more of a consumer play, it could be a royalty model. It could be a market education, depending on where the organization's at and where they're sitting. And obviously, the professional service pieces of it is pretty straightforward.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess the answer is it depends on, and so I would whoever has asked this question, if you want to reach out, depending on kind of what you're doing, we'll come up with a model that makes sense for you as a company and that aligns with your business model as well.
Okay,
Um,
well,
does B-Secure work with startups or only large companies?
all across the board.
Same with us, all across the board. Um, one couple more questions just came in. Can the data collected slash analyzed, I guess this is for us, but can the data that was collected and analyzed by basic algorithms sent to an EHR system? Um, yes, the answer is yes. We do have an EHR integration built onto the Galen Cloud. So if you're using the cloud base, or even if you're just connecting to the cloud and sending the signal out, uh, whatever data that you want to send to the EHR, EMR systems, we can definitely send those. And that includes the kind of the markers or signal processed signals to EMR or to whatever system, third-party system of record that needs to have those. So we can do that kind of integration. Does B-Secure provide a development kit? Maybe an
So
evaluation kit?
yeah, more of an evaluation kit, but I guess I'm kind of hearing that from an EKG development kit. So yes, we actually do have a product as well. If you're looking to do your own EKG development, that we have patented. So yes, is the short answer, depending on where
Right.
you're at in that process.
Cool. Uh, One last question. Not quite sure I follow the question. Does the B-Secure algorithms run as is on Galen platform, or is it modified? I'm trying to paraphrase this question. It's a long-winded question, but I think the gist of the question is, do we run it as is or do we modify it? And the answer is as is. So this is what's a cleared, FDA cleared algorithm is. We don't make any change. The algorithm itself has an API that we leverage as an integration, but it's really managed as a whole. It's what B-Secure provides. So we don't make any change. We just run it within our environment. We manage the ins and outs. So we track for security and privacy of data and stuff like that, track for performance. We scale up and down as needed as more and more stuff comes. But there is no change into the algorithm itself. It's really purely a leverage of the integration function that was already built out. Both sides have an API, so we really just marry the API together to allow for a seamless kind of interaction within the system. One more question came up. B-Secure websites say you do professional services. What does that entail?
So oh gosh, it entails quite a bit. So everything from electrode characterization work. So what is the material management that's going to get the best signal? We also work across with a lot of the semico companies or organizations that may be trying to do something with a microcontroller or an AFE. Bluetooth connectivity. So I mean, we've worked with nearly, I mean, right now we're doing about 60 projects a year, give or take, from a professional services standpoint. So it's everything. We've worked with everything from dog collars and horses to humans. So it's pretty broad. Um, so if it's a discovery for somebody looking for a new form factor or a second generation device, to even we've got prototype devices that we've built for other organizations, and even getting ECG signals off waistbands and clothing. So I would argue, I guess, from that aspect, that's kind of where the foundation of the organization started, was the professional services work of wanting to not only understand the ECG signal, but where on the body can you get it from? And I think what we've found so far is the vast majority of, if there's skin that we can get a material on, we can most likely get an ECG from it.
Cool. Let's see if there's any more questions. I think I answered. I did. Do I need a subscription to the Galen Cloud to use the algorithm? The answer is yes. If you want to use the cloud integration, you do need a Galen Cloud subscription. Uh, but as Tyler mentioned, some of these algorithms can be available directly on device. But again, it'll depend on what you're trying to do and stuff like that. Oh, more questions. Um, who owns the data processed by B-Secure/Galen platform? I can answer some of that. At least for Galen, from a Galen perspective, all data is always not ours. So we don't claim any data. It's really for you to manage. So it could be your data, it could be the health system's data, it could be the patient's data. That's really something whatever you manage. But we don't, as Galen data, we don't have any real ownership of the data. We're really just the custodians of the data. We manage the data and we provide services on that data. And then the way at least the integration works, B-Secure has no access to that data, so they have no ownership either. So that was that. This is a question. I don't know if you know about a company called Pacemate. It says, is this collaboration resemble a Pacemate? I'm not familiar with Pacemate, so I don't know the answer.
I'll say it could. I'd say it's two different organizations between Galen and Pacemate, and where Pacemate's focus is. So I think that's a little bit different from the service offering, at least
Uh,
from my lens.
all right. Oh, one more question came in. What happens if, can you modify or update the B-Secure algorithm if there is a specific need of the customer? So I guess they're talking about customization of a approved algorithm, though.
So, well, yes and no. So I would actually say that some of where we've come with this has been pulled by organizations wanting us to do more and getting an FDA approval for it to make it easier to integrate into their devices. Um, I mean, I don't know that that's really answering, but as it relates to HeartKey Core specifically and being on device, absolutely, because that's actually what the FDA approval is for, and working with it from the materials management all the way through the AFEs. So
Cool.
kind of two different questions, I guess, depending on how I can interpret it.
I guess it depends. Yeah, I mean, it depends on what kind of changes they're asking for either, too, right? So
Correct.
it could be within the scope of your clearance, or it could be a brand new clearance needed. Fine. That was all the questions, unless something comes up. But if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to either us or Tyler directly. You see the email address or the contact information of us and Be Secure, specifically Tyler, on the screen. But just want to reiterate, the aim of this was to make aware the B-Secure algorithms, what they can do, and that they'll be available shortly within the Galen ecosystem once we get through all the clearances and required required testing and everything through that. But Tyler, thanks for joining. It was great having you and great discussing this partnership. And uh, I know you are in Belfast right now, so you're almost ready to get dinner. So hopefully you have a good evening. And thanks again for joining. And thanks for everyone else.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for those joined.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
it's a real pleasure.